Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Menke. I'm currently the head of UX research at Udemy. We have an awesome team of 7, Janelle, is that right? 7? Yes, right now, which is really great. So Udemy, if you're not familiar, is an online learning and teaching platform where you can do things like take UX design and research classes, among other things. In a former life, I was a field anthropologist and studied ecotourism and have been in industry for 5 years now.
My name is Ngozi Okoro, and I'm a user experience researcher at AnswerLab. And if you haven't heard of AnswerLab, we work with Fortune 500 companies, and luckily there's no shortage of them in the Bay Area. So, we help different agencies. I'm providing the agency, I think, perspective on the panel. So we help companies provide exceptional digital experiences to their users. Because of that, we've gotten an opportunity to work with a variety of companies in different industries, which for me, who enjoys variety, has been really enjoyable. In a former life, I was a civil engineer, so my first degree is in, and then made that transition to user experience research, and I've been in the field since 2012.
Hi, I'm Sarah, user research lead at Coinbase, which, if you're not familiar, is a platform where you can buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency. And prior to this, I was at Ancestry.com, family history service. So I've been in-house for a number of years now, although I did start my career in agencies. So I have an agency side, building a team now. We're hiring. But happy to be here with you all today.
Great. So we'll start with our first question, and I'll ask Claire, how do you fit research into design sprints?
That's a great question. So research and design, depending on your organization, have different relationships and orientations. At Udemy, we actually sit parallel to design, and both organizations report into product. So we're truly, a seat at the table in a lot of those business decisions. And so it's really great because when it comes to doing research, we get to see a lot of the business questions early on. And so we can actually work not in the design sprint and not have that be sort of the forcing function. So we can oftentimes work parallel and work, let exploration projects run a little bit longer. Sometimes evaluation takes, a few days or something like that, and that we can fit into a sprint. But most of the time we actually are sprint agnostic. And that's because we get to see get really early glimpses into what those business questions are, and then can sort of prioritize and plan our research accordingly to make sure that we do the best job possible for the actual research question itself.
And this was a popular question, so I'd like to ask Ngozi, how do you integrate research into design sprints? Are you sprint agnostic as well?
Well, it depends on the company that I'm working with and at what point in the design sprint I've been brought in. So I'll talk about my ideal perspective, like being brought in as early as possible as part of that is great. And depending on, again, at what point I've been brought in as a researcher, I like to start off with stakeholder interviews. So I take advantage of the product knowledge of the team to understand the research questions they're trying to answer at what point in this design sprint, and then any findings that happen in previous sprints that would relate to what we're trying to kind of discover and take next steps on at that point. So I guess my answer would be as soon as possible.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Sarah?
Those were great answers, so not really, but primarily sprint agnostic, unless you're trying to answer a very tactical question like we have to usability test this in advance of the next sprint so that we can make changes before it starts to get built. So it kind of depends on the research question, but primarily sprint agnostic.
We have 56 questions. That's a lot of questions. Well, we have a bunch of researchers. You guys are all really curious. It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, but these were the top voted ones. Okay, so we have some people here from different backgrounds, like psychology majors and even academic backgrounds. How would you recommend for somebody from a different background, not necessarily a tech background, to break into user research? Starting with Sarah.
Me.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's tough. Like, not going to beat around the bush there. But I do think that it's important to realize that not everybody necessarily, so I think the traditional background would be you had some sort of social science background. But if you had any kind of customer service background or like worked in IT service desk, or you have a really good like client-facing perspective, those are all really transferable skills. If you had any experience with like experimental design, I use that every single day. So there's absolutely translatable stuff if you know data, if you've ever done any kind of data analysis. So what I would do, because I just kind of found an agency that was, silly enough to take a chance on me, and they just hired me with no experience. But if you're not quite that lucky, if I were doing it now, I would probably, especially in this area, I would find a startup, because they're benefiting too, because they probably wouldn't be able to hire somebody for full price. So it's basically like, they get a discount and you get a chance to show your chops, and then you have something to put on your resume. I don't know if you folks have other ideas.
Yeah, that's actually what I usually recommend to people. So when I was transitioning from academia to industry, I had a mentor who recommended I just reach out to anyone who had recently gotten money on Angel's List and just say, hey, here's what I can do. Let me know if this sounds interesting. And had a similar experience where a small startup, actually in the field that I was interested in, said, sure, let's try it out. And it worked and it didn't work, but it at least got my foot in the door, and I learned a lot. And so that would be kind of my recommendation, is to, one, try a chance on a startup, or another option is nonprofits. There's a lot of nonprofits in the region that could use a lot of help. And so, providing those services pro bono is a great way to build a portfolio and also do some good along the way.
And I have a question or did you want to answer that as well?
Just briefly, one thing to add to that. Startups are great. I think that one thing that I would recommend that would apply to everything is that we talk a lot about storytelling in the field. So thinking about your personal story and figuring out how to tell it in a way where you would want to hire you. You're going to be looked at as a resource in whatever company that you join. So you have to be confident in making the recommendations you are related to your research. So, whatever story or resume or presentation that you're giving, present it in a way where you would trust the recommendations that you would provide. So.
Great piece of feedback. Okay, and we'll go into our next question. Resources. So we have internet, as an information junkie, I go online and I search and I look, but what is the best resource for learning about user research? What do you guys recommend? Is there any particular book or blog that you love?
I'm going to plug Ariel Sionflon does an amazing community called Mixed Methods. It has a blog, really great Medium articles. She also is starting to do community events, and it has a really active Slack channel where you can find everything from resources to jobs to help with your portfolio or get tips on how to do research projects better in your practice.
Who is that?
Sionflon.
Ariel Sionflon.
Great last name.
How do you spell?
I don't know. I can
Okay.
I can find it if you come up to me afterwards. I can help you find her name.
When I made that kind of transition to UX research, one of the first books that inspired me was The Design of Everyday Things. I think if you're in UX research, you've probably read it. And the author of that book, the website is Nielsen Norman Group, and that's like a very popular one. I don't think there's any one resource I'm like only go to that. I think just staying informed, following people who are kind of thought leaders in the field is always a good thing.
+1 to Mixed Methods, for sure. I'm a member of that. And there's a really good Google group, Design User Research. I'm on there constantly.
Nice. And then also the Research Ops Slack channel, which I'm part of. That's a new one. We just launched that recently. But nice little plug there. Okay, so there's something that I've noticed in trends, which is that a lot of, not all user researchers have a master's or a PhD, but quite a few of them do. And some of them come from academic backgrounds and then become, and work for technology companies. Do you think it's required to, and this is a closed question, but closed question well, I don't know. Do you guys think it's required to have a master's or a PhD to get to become a user
Graduate School
researcher?
of Hard Knocks here, so it can be done. No, but I did have a bachelor's in a social science, so to be fair, like I did have that. But no, and like a lot of people do have masters, a lot of people don't have masters. I think work experience is gonna trump it every time, but I'm biased.
Yeah, no, I would add to that. I do have a master's. That's what kind of introduced me to the career change, but I don't think it's required. I've met people from a variety of fields at a variety of levels of education, and it's the paths are unique, so there's really no right way.
And I often think, academic, getting degrees is always a great way to, learn theory and stuff like that, but there is a big difference between learning it in theory and actually doing it in practice. And so consider that as well.
Awesome. Okay. And for our next question here, the qualitative data. How do you synthesize a large amount of qualitative data coming from a semi-structured interview? What does that mean?
Unless you guys want.
Yeah.
So I have dealt with this. I ran a study that was over 200 interviews in the end. And I thought I was going to die. But there is a way where you can set up an Excel sheet so that the questions are on the left and then your participant names are across the top. And then in each cell, you just are typing what they said, like really quick court reporter style. And then you can basically like filter, like just show me people who, were in this country who had this occupation, for example, or just show me people that we talked to on this day. So yeah, it's a really big file though.
Did you run out of cells?
No.
Can you run out of cells? No.
You can run
can?
out of cells,
Okay.
sadly. Press that one a few too many times. I think there's a bunch of different methods that you can use to sort of deep dive and tear apart qualitative interviews. There's starting to be more tools. So tools that can help you actually take notes during a session, and then you can go back through and leverage machine learning and things like that to sort of pull apart different findings and stuff like that. I'm also just a big fan. I basically write notes verbatim and then just will do keyword searches and stuff like that. So I think it's note-taking and sort of processing large sets of qualitative data is a very personal thing. So I don't believe that there's any one right way to do it. It's sort of however you figure out how to do it.
I agree with all of that. So I think it was Sunny in the beginning that's talked about how planning was a big, so when you're going into different qualitative research, you kind of have an idea of the responses that you plan to get. So whether it's an Excel sheet or transcription service, I think that planning is key to that when you have a large amount of data. So organizing it in a way that will be easy for you to find and pull out patterns is important, but yep.
What do you guys use? What are your favorite tools for collecting research, for documenting research, and for synthesizing research?
Those are three.
I know, there are three different questions. Let's say, let's stick with documenting. So what is your favorite tool for
Collecting.
I guess collecting and documenting, are they the same thing?
Okay. So for
No?
collecting research, I like to, in my final deliverables, have as much of the actual users presented in that storytelling. So I always record, whether I'm doing like remote or in-person studies, like particular tools I'm working with. I mean, there's so many about Zoom right now for anyone who wants recommendations. It includes transcription as part of that, so it's nice, as opposed to something like WebEx, which is also very popular. But yeah, that would be my first for collecting. So Google and any kind of recording software. So
And how about for note-taking?
Yeah, Excel. I use, not Excel. I'm Google Docs because of the cloud. Accessing it wherever is a huge benefit, and there's a lot of shortcuts that you can do to track time when people said things, which makes it easier to match when you're writing things verbatim and when it comes up in your recording. So another tip and trick.
Anybody else? No? What about Trello? Do you guys use Trello? Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Trello. I'm coming from an agency, keeping track of different relationships that you have with clients. Trello is great for knowledge management. So, I think I mentioned before, come in at different stages of when a project is developed, but you want to for good client experience, not have people repeat things for you. So marking down like what you recorded from your last finding so that they can inform and make whatever your next research topic is better. I love Trello. So.
If anyone knows, the one thing that I haven't found is a good like audio and video database management system. If anyone knows of a good one, please come find me, because what I'd love to do, which I can't do right now, is upload everything, all of the video clips and stuff like that, and actually pull highlights and let sort of machine learning do its thing and get transcriptions and actually pull things to join multiple projects. So if anyone
Just
has
create
ideas,
it. So
let me know.
that's a new idea for a startup right there. Right? Yeah. If it doesn't exist
I
and
have
you
to
need
plug it
it,
where I can.
then you can make it. Okay, so 2 more questions. And, well, one of them is that, like, I'll just ask this question. Say I work at a startup, it's like medium size, and we want to have research, but we don't have the budget for it. How would you suggest going about pushing for user research?
So I was the first user researcher at Udemy. So they had enough budget to bring me on. So I'm not sure what that conversation looked like to get the budget to bring on the first person. But usually once you bring on the first person, I think a large part of the strategy is kind of twofold. One is quick wins. So insert yourself into a project, maybe prove out features. Sometimes you kill a program like I did in my first 3 months. And very quickly let people see the return on that investment of trying something new. And then the other biggest thing is that I think my job is 80 to 90% relationship management. That's basically what I do, especially now that I'm a manager and I deal at a little bit higher level. But even when I was first starting out, I think one of the biggest things you can do is build that network and really find people across the company, not just in your team, but also across the organization, and slowly get them to understand research and get them to buy into you as a person as well, and sort of build people that you can go into any room and you have someone on your side. And I think that has paid dividends. And so I know people hate meetings. I know people, it's a lot of work to manage those relationships, but it's hugely important for anybody's career. So that's what I would recommend as well.
I just want to add, I really liked a lot of what Sunny was saying about allowing the stakeholders to observe the research. If you can manage to run one study, just usability test something, like interview about something, a lot of times even like the disbelievers will come in and be like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing and helpful. How do we get more of that? So it works like a charm.
A slight thing to add to that, I think that when it comes to not having budget, it's not that there's not money there, it's more that it hasn't been prioritized yet. So I would recommend getting an ally for whoever has control of those purse strings, figuring out what their personal kind of pain points are, and then trying to find a way to solve that for them quickly during research. I mean, take advantage of the freemium options that you have with a lot of different research tools, and then quickly solve a problem for them, and then they'll become your ally for trying to get access to budget.
Yeah, don't be afraid to do research on your stakeholders is another thing that I love to do. So sit down and talk with them and say, hey, how is this working for you? How's this not working for you? What are the big questions you have? And sort of do meta research on the people that you're doing research for and with.
So, okay. And then our final question tonight is, what should we just talked about the best way to sell people on the value of research. How do you measure the success of a solution? Academic backgrounds. Which one should we ask? Anybody? No. We have so many questions. No. I'm thinking more about how does user research impact a company?
It's a big one.
It's a big one, but what is the value? Why is it important?
I am going to refer back to a slide that you guys have already seen for my answers. So I think the difference between a finding, an insight, and an implication is really important for kind of answering that question about impact. I mean, we make observations with our research and then turning that into a finding and then actually aligning that with a business goal. That is kind of the ideal workflow so that you can see the immediate impact it's having, whether it's, you know, financials and the number of customers, whatever that business goal is, and it will vary across companies, but that's the way it should impact business. Not always happens, but does not always happen, but that's the way it should.
So you think it plays a huge impact on the business?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you have direct access to your customer and you're understanding what they want and you're able to create that for them. Like, you're like, okay, well, it's a direct conversation with the customer. You're finding out what they want and then you're creating the product for them.
So just to add one thing, I think we've talked a lot about customer research, but even something like a competitive analysis, understanding where your business is succeeding or failing in the space that you're operating in is important. So it's just another way that you can have an impact on your business.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
There's a question right there.
What about enterprise products? Yeah. We're about to get to that. We're getting on the, yeah.
So actually Udemy, I don't know if people know this, but it has both a business to consumer side and a business to business product. So we do both the consumer and the enterprise related research. And it's been interesting to see sort of the business to business side has been growing. So it's, you know, not quite as developed as the consumer side. And they've actually kind of gotten jealous, I think, a little bit of all the insights that have come from the consumer side of the business. So we were able to leverage that pretty well. But I think a lot of it is, for me, I see a lot of the quick wins in helping them sell better and understanding, okay, what is the value proposition? Who are you selling this to? Because if they're able to get sales, then it bleeds into interest in doing research in the product and figuring out how to improve those sides as well. So I think understanding, yes, the user, but also the business and what does the business need at that particular time, I think helps.
Okay. And Sarah, did you want to add anything? Or?
All of that is great. And I think it is about tying it back to key performance metrics. You know, most companies will listen to metrics. So if you can find a metric that would be impacted, like, you know, number of users onboarded or something like that, then yeah.
That would be, okay. Thank you, ladies, so much. Everybody give it up for Claire, Ngozi, and Sarah. Yes. Good job. Thank you. Awesome.